In this video, the Flash Goddess of the Soul Society is going up against the Queen of Hueco Mundo. Yoruichi is both the former captain of the 2nd Division and the former commander-in-chief of the Onmitsukido, and she was the head of one of the 4 great noble families. She fights without a Zanpakuto and instead relies on a mastery of hand-to-hand combat which is so refined that she's earned the title of the most proficient Shunpo user in the entire Soul Society. Standing opposite her, we have Tia Harribel, the 3rd ranking Espada, a Vastolorde class Arrancar whose water manipulation abilities grant her control over the battlefield in ways that most fighters simply cannot anticipate. She simultaneously engaged Bankai Hitsugaya and 2 holified Vizard lieutenants without sustaining any significant damage. After the fall of Aizen, Barragan, and Stark, she became the ruler of Hueco Mundo, a position that no one, not even Grimmjow with all of his pride and bloodlust, has challenged her for. So we have a Shinigami who's abandoned the sword in favor of perfecting her body as a weapon, versus an Espada who commands the most abundant element on the planet. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll understand exactly why Yoruichi versus Harribel isn't even close. Let's establish the ground rules. This fight is going to take place on neutral ground, meaning there's no environmental advantages for either side. This is important because Harribel's water generation does become exponentially more dangerous near oceans, lakes, or anywhere with high humidity. Neutral ground strips that away and forces her to generate every drop of water from her own spiritual energy. Yoruichi, meanwhile, is a close-range combatant who thrives regardless of terrain, so the neutral setting doesn't affect her in the same way. Both characters will enter at their respective peaks. For Yoruichi, that means her 1000-year Blood War arc arsenal is accessible to her. She can use her full Shunko, both tiers of its evolution, which include Raijin Senkai and the thunderous Black Cat Battle Princess form. She also carries the Shihoin clan treasures, which include the Tenchi Heso Razor Wire Web and her destructive spheres. She also has her anti-Arrancar Iron Skin armor designed by Urahara specifically to tear through Arrancar defenses. For Harribel, she enters with her completed Resurrection Taiburon along with her full suite of water manipulation abilities. She has theoretical access to Gran Rey Cerro and Cerro Oscuras as all Espada do in their released forms, even though she's never really demonstrated them during the manga. No outside interference is allowed, so Urahara can't help Yoruichi and Harribel's Fraction cannot support her. The win conditions are death or complete incapacitation, and neither of them is allowed to retreat. Let's now go over each of the characters, beginning with Yoruichi Shihoin. Her story within Bleach stands out because she exists as a contradiction to everything that the Soul Society values. Shinigami typically fight with Zanpakuto, but she abandoned hers. She also left her captain post behind to help Urahara escape into exile. Every major institution in the Soul Society represents tradition, and Yoruichi operates outside of all of them. Despite that, or perhaps because of it, she is one of the most dangerous characters in the series. Her most noteworthy trait is her speed. She holds the title of Flash Goddess. She's undeniably the most proficient Shunpo master in the history of the Soul Society. Even after spending a century in exile without formal training, she was still able to outrun Byakuya Kuchiki while carrying an unconscious Ichigo over her shoulder, performing approximately 300 consecutive Shunpo steps before tiring. She created the Utsusemi technique itself, a movement so fast that it leaves a tangible afterimage behind, a technique that she later taught to Byakuya. Her Shunpo mastery extends beyond raw velocity, as she can appear in multiple locations at the same time, and she once wiped out an entire Onmitsukido squadron in seconds with speed alone. She is also one of the most skilled, or if not the most skilled, Hakuda fighters in the Soul Society. She has techniques like Ryoken, a barrage of high-speed punches, along with various Onmitsukido martial arts techniques that she developed or mastered during her time as commander-in-chief. During the Arrancar arc, she dominated Yami, the 10th and later 0-ranking Espada, in hand-to-hand combat alongside Urahara. She flipped him with a throw technique and beat him into submission. During the fake Karakura Town arc, she was able to crack the shell of Aizen's 2nd Hokyoku evolved form thanks to her anti-Iron Skin armor. According to the Bleach character databook Mark III unmasked, her anti-iron skin armor was specifically designed to crush through enhanced durability. Yoruichi is also a Kido master and a master assassin. Her Shunko itself is a fusion of Hakuda and Kido, and during its activation she can use Hanki, a technique that nullifies an opponent's Kido by generating an equal and opposite force. She is able to cancel incoming energy-based attacks by matching their exact output but in reverse. As a former commander-in-chief of the Onmitsukido, she is one of the foremost masters of assassination in the Soul Society. She once caught Aizen completely off guard and subdued him before he could react. This is a truly remarkable stealth feat against the single most perceptive villain in the entire series. The 1000-Year Blood War arc is then where Yoruichi's ceiling reaches terrifying heights. She confronted Yhwach directly alongside Ichigo's group and trapped him in the Tenchi Heiso, the shredding spider's web, a Shihoin class treasure consisting of razor-sharp wires that she claims can harm even Yhwach himself if he were to try and move through them. She deployed the destructive spheres against Yhwach, weapons that destroy any part hit by a second sphere after the first one makes contact. She also created protective barriers around Mimihagi in order to shield it from Yhwach's attacks, proving she has defensive utility and range on top of her close combat dominance. Her fight against Askin Naklavar is where everything escalates. Askin is a member of the Schutzstaffel, Yhwach's elite guard, making him one of the strongest Quincy in the entire Vandenreich. Yoruichi initially overwhelmed him using her standard Shunko, effortlessly weaving through his arrows and even catching one and throwing it back with enough force to knock him off his feet. When Askin adapted and managed to poison her with his gift bad ability, she was still conscious and functioning in a state where Askin himself admitted anyone else would be dead by now. Yoruichi possesses a natural resistance to his poison manipulation that even surprised him. After Urahara injected her with a restorative drug, she then activated Shunko Raijin Senkei, the God of Thunder battle form. In this state, she generates a massive column of concentrated lightning that overwhelms Askin to the point of forcing him into his Volstandig, the Quincy equivalent to an ultimate transformation. This is a Schutzstaffel member being pushed to his absolute limits by Yoruichi. Then her subsequent transformation into a God of Thunder form pushes things even further. In this form, her Reiatsu changes 48 times per second due to her feline nature, making it unstable and fickle. The constant fluctuation made it impossible for Askin's death-dealing, an ability that manipulates lethal dosages, to lock onto her signature long enough to take effect. She blitzed him repeatedly in this state, and it was this form that left him truly scrambling to survive. This now brings us to Tia Harribel. Her backstory is one of the most interesting among the Espada. Unlike Grimmjow, who consumed over 3,000 hollows to reach Vasto Lorde status, Harribel achieved that same classification without devouring others. She refused to follow the laws of Las Noches, instead gathering female adhuchas together, arguing that they would be stronger as a group than hunting alone. This philosophy of sacrifice defines her aspect of death, and it shapes how she approaches combat at every level. She's not a berserker or a nihilist, she is more of a calculated warrior who fights with purpose. Her combat record during the Fate Karakura Town arc tells an interesting story. She simultaneously fought Bankai Hitsugaya, a captain level prodigy, alongside two holified Vizard lieutenants, Lisa and Hiyori, without taking any meaningful damage. She pressed all three opponents, forcing them to coordinate their attacks just to maintain equilibrium. Against Hitsugaya specifically, she demonstrated a lot of tactical brilliance. When he froze her Cascada attack, she adapted instantly by using Hirviendo to boil his ice. When he created ice clones to deceive her, she applied enough combat pressure to expose the trick. She turned his own element against him by demonstrating that ice is simply frozen water, and she controls water in every form. What makes her feats even more noteworthy is the context. In her base form, before even activating her resurrection, Harribel was overwhelming Hitsugaya's Bankai. She parried a surprise attack that he had been saving for a critical moment and demonstrated reaction speed that exceeded his calculations. The Bleach databooks state that the Espada are ranked by their power levels, and Harribel's placement as the third ranking Espada reflects a raw Reiatsu density that surpasses everyone ranked below her, including Ukiyora's base form. As one of the top 4 Espada, she is forbidden from releasing her Zanpakuto inside of the Dome of Las Noches because doing so would demolish the fortress. Her Resurrection Taiburon grants mastery over water in every state of matter. The transformation reshapes her mask remnants into a collar, and her sword becomes a massive pata resembling a shark tooth with gill markings that generate water. Cascada summons torrential waterfalls powerful enough to flood entire city blocks. Lagota fires high-velocity projectiles shaped like shark teeth that can demolish buildings in rapid succession. Hirviendo allows her to boil any water near her blade, turning enemy ice attacks into ammunition. Trident infuses her blade with energy and releases it in 3 devastating slashes capable of cutting opponents in half. During the 1000-year Blood War arc, Yhwach personally fought and defeated Harribel during the Vandenreich invasion of Wikomundo. The 1000-year Blood War arc anime adds a scene showing Yhwach leading the Quincy army where they defeated Harribel when Nell recounts the story to Ichigo, which implies that the Emperor of the Quincy himself considered her enough of a threat to handle personally rather than delegating the task to a subordinate. Her swordsmanship is also exceptional, as she can seamlessly switch sword hands mid-combat, a technique that leaves 0 openings for counterattacks. Combine this with her Sonido mastery and her keen intellect, which allowed her to read Hitsugaya's emotions through his Reiatsu fluctuations, and you have a fighter who is far more dangerous than many fans give her credit for. The Can't Fear Unworld light novels further reinforce her threat level. When Lil Toto and Giselle, 2 surviving Sternritter, encounter the situation in Wikomundo, Lil Toto explicitly states that they need to be careful because Yhwach took Harribel himself. Coming from a Quincy who survived the entire war, that kind of caution speaks volumes about Harribel's standing in the post-war power landscape. Now let's move on to each of their abilities. Harribel's power system is elemental manipulation. She generates water, controls its temperature and pressure, and uses it both offensively and defensively. It is versatile within its domain, but it's ultimately conventional. Water is able to hit targets, block attacks, and drown opponents. These are physical effects governed by the basic interactions between spiritual energy and matter. Yoruichi's power system is layered and it operates differently. Her Shunko wraps dense lightning-based Kido around her limbs, amplifying every strike that she throws and giving her the ability to fire lightning blasts from her body. Her Raijin Senke form escalates this, allowing her to call down massive columns of divine lightning. Then her God of Thunder form introduces new mechanics that break conventional combat, fluctuating Reiatsu that shifts faster than any opponent can track or adapt to. This matters against Harribel specifically because water conducts electricity. This is not a trivial observation. When discussing this matchup, fans often point out that this is essentially a Pokemon type matchup where electric beats water. Every single one of Harribel's offensive techniques involve projecting water outward from her position. Cascada, Lagota, Hirviendo, all of it generates conductive material that Yoruichi's lightning-infused strikes and Shunko blasts can channel through. The very element Harribel relies on becomes a liability against an opponent who fights using electricity. She cannot flood the battlefield without creating pathways for Yoruichi's lightning to travel directly back to her. Harribel does possess Iron Skin as a passive defense, and as the 3rd ranking Espada, it is substantial. However, Yoruichi's anti-Iron Skin armor exists for the explicit purpose of crushing through Arrancar defenses. Urahara designed these metal gloves and boots after Yoruichi injured herself, striking base Yami's Iron Skin without them. If the armor can crack Hokyoku-infused Aizen, then the 3rd ranking Espada's Iron Skin is not going to hold up. On top of this, Yoruichi's Hanki allows her to neutralize incoming energy-based attacks by generating an equal and opposite Kido force. If Harribel fires a Sero or channels spiritual energy into her water techniques, Yoruichi has a direct countermeasure that most opponents simply do not possess. In terms of raw striking power, Yoruichi holds a massive edge. Like we mentioned, her Shunko enhanced strikes were able to break through the defensive barrier of Hokyoku-infused Aizen. Harribel's physical attacks are formidable, and her ability to cut opponents in half with Trident is no joke, but she has no feat that compares to damaging a transcendent level entity's defenses. Speed is where Yoruichi dominates this matchup entirely. She is canonically the fastest Shinigami who has ever lived. Her Shunko forms push her speed into ranges that Harribel simply cannot match. During a fight with Askin, she blitzed a Schutzstaffel member, someone whose raw combat stats are leagues above any Espada outside of perhaps Segunda Etapa Ukiura. Harribel is a Sonido master and kept pace with Hitsugaya's Bankai enhanced movement, which is impressive, but Hitsugaya's speed and a Schutzstaffel Quincy speed are not in the same conversation. The gap is enormous, especially if it's Hitsugaya from the Aranka arc. In terms of close combat technique, Yoruichi again holds the advantage. She is described as the most skilled Hakuda master in the Soul Society. Her formal training under Yamamoto's era, combined with her decades as commander of the Onmitsukido and over a century of practical experience, gives her a technical foundation that Harribel cannot match. Harribel's ambidextrous swordsmanship is impressive, and her ability to switch hands mid-combat is a smart tactic, but Yoruichi's entire fighting philosophy revolves around hand-to-hand supremacy. She has dedicated her existence to perfecting combat without a weapon. Against someone whose entire style is built around closing distance and overwhelming with speed, Harribel's sword becomes less of an advantage and more of a limitation in terms of reaction windows. Both fighters are intelligent combatants, but they approach combat from different strategic frameworks. Yoruichi is insightful and crafty, capable of quickly understanding any situation and adjusting effectively. She planned countermeasures when she realized Ichigo would charge into the Soul Society. As she independently trained Orihime and Chad, she carried specialized equipment into the Yhwach confrontation, deploying clan treasures and destructive spheres at precisely the right moments. She's a planner who also excels at improvisation. Harribel's intelligence is intuitive instead of strategic. She reads opponents through their demeanor and Reiatsu fluctuations. She identified Hitsugaya's concern for his lieutenant through a subtle wavering in his spiritual pressure. She exploited his techniques by turning his ice into her water. This is clever reactive adaptation, but it operates within a narrower scope. Harribel analyzes what is in front of her and responds. Yoruichi analyzes what is in front of her, what might be behind her, and what her opponent is likely to do 3 moves from now, and how to exploit all of it at the same time. The experience gap compounds this, as Yoruichi has centuries of combat experience from leading the Onmitsukido, the Soul Society's covert operations and assassination force. Harribel has extensive experience from surviving as a Vasto Lorda in Hueco Mundo and serving as an Espada. Both have seen countless battles, but Yoruichi's experience is rooted in fighting opponents who use deception, Kido, Zanpakuto abilities, and guerrilla tactics. She was trained to handle every kind of trick in the book. Harribel's experience is primarily against Hollows and then Shinigami during a single war. The breadth of Yoruichi's tactical education gives her a distinctive edge in a one-on-one fight. Harribel's durability is impressive, and it deserves more respect than it receives, as she survived Hitsugaya's Hyoten Hyakuso, a ability he explicitly stated would kill her, emerging without a visible injury. Her iron skin allowed her body to endure being completely encased in ice, and the power scaling data confirms that she completely resisted the coldness of Hitsugaya's ice itself. The cold temperature had zero effect on her. She walked out of an attack designed to freeze her to death as though nothing had happened. She then survived 2 direct slashes from Aizen, a man whose casual sword strikes were dropping captains. As some fans have correctly pointed out, tanking hits from Aizen and Yhwach are durability feats that very few characters in Bleach can claim. Yoruichi's durability is a different kind of impressive. She fought through Askin's gift bad poison, a technique that should have been lethal, and remained conscious and capable of speech in a state that Askin said would have killed anyone else. She took hits from a Schutzstaffel member and kept fighting. Her Shunko provides an additional defensive layer through the dense Kido surrounding her body. For stamina, Harribel has an advantage in extended fights. Her Resurrection does not appear to drain her significantly, and she fought a 3-on-1 battle without showing exhaustion. Yoruichi's God of Thunder form is extremely powerful, but it comes with notable drawbacks. She loses her rational mind and behaves on instinct, and the form appears to be difficult to sustain. If this fight stretches into a prolonged fight of attrition, Harribel's consistent energy output becomes more valuable. The question is whether Yoruichi would ever let it get to that point. Now we have ultimate abilities. Yoruichi's God of Thunder form is her ceiling. The form clads her in an aura of electrical energy, her limbs ending in claws made of lightning, as she gains a cat-like tail and ears made of pure electricity. The power increase is massive, and she can overwhelm a Schutzstaffel member in direct combat while using it. The critical mechanic is the Reiatsu fluctuation that I mentioned earlier. Those constant shifts mean that any opponent attempting to calibrate their attacks to her spiritual pressure is essentially aiming at a target that never stops moving on the spiritual frequency spectrum. This is devastating against ability-based fighters who need to lock onto a opponent's Reiatsu signature. There is a catch though. Yoruichi hates this form because she loses her agency. She behaves like a wild cat, acting on instinct rather than rational thought. Urahara is typically the one who controls her in this state, and in this fight there is no Urahara. This is a genuine weakness that some people have pointed out rightfully. Without Urahara's guidance, she may laze about, change direction mid-strike, or not press advantages when she critically needs to. It is her most powerful form, but it trades strategic thinking for raw, overwhelming force. Harribel's ultimate output comes from her Resurrection combined with her theoretical access to Gran Rey Saro and Saro Oscuras. A Gran Rey Saro from the 3rd ranking Espada in a released form would carry devastating force capable of distorting space itself, combined with Cascada flooding the battlefield and La Gota providing rapid-fire ranged pressure. Harribel at full output can turn the surrounding area into a drowning zone. If this fight takes place near any natural water source, this becomes exponentially more dangerous. The clash potential between their ultimate abilities creates an interesting problem for Harribel. If Harribel floods the area with Cascada while Yoruichi is in her lightning form, the water becomes electrified. If Harribel fires the Gota projectiles, Yoruichi's speed allows her to dodge them, while the water splashing on impact creates additional conductive surfaces. Her Viendo can boil water into steam, which could theoretically obscure Yoruichi's vision, but her combat operates on Reiatsu detection far more than visual tracking. The elemental interaction does favor the lightning user here. Any wildcard in this fight is only going to be relevant to Harribel. Her wildcard is environmental manipulation at scale. A lot of people have correctly argued that Kubo underutilized her abilities. She could theoretically conjure tsunamis, create water prisons, boil the moisture inside an opponent's body, or use high-pressure water jets as cutting tools. The potential is massive, but the manga never showed her accessing these more creative applications. For the purposes of this analysis, we can only evaluate what has been demonstrated or what the series has confirmed that she can do, rather than theorizing what she has the potential to do. Another factor worth considering is about Harribel fighting in the human world versus Hueco Mundo. Some people have correctly pointed out that Hollows receive a power boost in Hueco Mundo, and Harribel was fighting in the fake Karakura town, which is the human world. She may have been operating below her actual peak during her most visible fight. This is a fair point, but on neutral ground, this advantage disappears entirely, so she has nothing left but to rely purely on what she brings to the table. The scaling disparity between these two characters becomes glaring when you look at who each of them has fought. Yoruichi pushed a Schutzstaffel member to his absolute limit. Harribel's best feats are shown against pre-timeskip Hitsugaya and 2 Vizard lieutenants, but as you can see, these tiers of opponents are not even comparable. With this fight, I see it unfolding like this. Yoruichi closes the distance immediately, because that is what she does. Harribel attempts to create space using Cascada and La Gota, generating water barriers and projectiles to force Yoruichi to fight at range, but Yoruichi evades everything with her Shumpo, and the moment her Shunko lightning makes contact with Harribel's water, the conductivity turns Harribel's own element into an attack vector. Harribel's Iron Skin absorbs initial punishment, but the armor Urahara built for this exact purpose strips that defense away if Yoruichi starts physically attacking. Harribel escalates to full Resurrection output, Yoruichi escalates to her Raijin Senkei, bringing divine lightning down on a battlefield now saturated with conductive water. Elemental disadvantage becomes catastrophic, as Pikachu is always going to beat Squirtle, so in the same way Yoruichi beats Harribel. Harribel's only path to victory is a sustained war of attrition, where she outlasts Yoruichi's Shunko and exploits the stamina drain of maintaining those transformations. If she can survive the initial onslaught and force the fight into a prolonged fight, then she has a narrow window, but Yoruichi is too fast, experienced, and well equipped to let that happen in most scenarios. I did run a community poll on the channel where I asked you guys who would win, Yoruichi or Harribel. We had over 32,000 votes, and 92% of you believed that Yoruichi would win, and only 8% of you backed Harribel. I do agree with the overwhelming majority here. Yoruichi easily takes this fight. Now I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Do you think Harribel's water manipulation has any creative applications that could flip this matchup? So stuff that we didn't see in the manga. Is the elemental advantage as decisive as I've argued in this video, or can Iron Skin and raw Espada Tierreatsu push through lightning? And what about Yoruichi's unknown Zanpakuto? Would she ever be forced to use it? Could it serve as a wild card? Do let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments, and lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.